Do you believe in a thing called love? Just listen to the rhythm
Yes.
of my heart. I won't sing the high pitched part because I don't want people to leave automatically if they just tuned in. Welcome back to the Dynasty Happy Hour. Football is right around the corner. We've got live actual football this coming weekend with the Hall of Fame game. I'm excited. Tyler, are you as excited as I am?
I am excited. And by the way, good morning, Vietnam. If anybody knows that movie, it is a great classic. Robin
It's
Williams.
a Robin
movie.
Williams film, yes.
Yes. Yeah, we're doing a morning podcast. It's been a couple times this summer, but it's
Yep.
you're getting all of the morning Doug and Tyler. Like Folgers.
Yes. It's the best part of waking up is Doug and Tyler in your cup. It's true.
It's not but
which kind of cup we talking about? Like a drinkable cup, like a sport cup? Like I don't really know.
I don't
cup
think it really
size?
matters. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
I mean, hot or
doesn't matter.
cold. Doug and Tyler
I
always
don't,
go
I don't
down
do hot
good.
beverages, so it's cold for me.
Okay, but
I had a bad experience.
Every time I drink coffee or anything, I sweat a lot. So like during the summer, if I have a hot beverage, I'm like,
well, you have red hair, so you naturally run hot anyway.
Yes,
that's a thing, right?
Yes, I was kissed by fire when I was born. That is the story.
Fair enough. But so this.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. See, this is what you get with morning.
Yeah, I'm half awake. I'm drinking a Diet Pepsi just because I'm like, I normally drink water during the day, but I'm like,
yeah,
you know what?
I'll give I got my kids upstairs on an iPad. I got my youngest hooting. They go, woo, woo, woo.
Oh, I thought they were doing like hootie hoo, like that old, was that a West Coast thing? Or is that Master P? I can't remember.
That's Master P, I think.
I think it is actually. Hootie hoo! The code for them killers. Yeah, that just took me back for a minute. I'm getting all gangster on the pod this early in the morning. Too early to murder people. I got to go back to bed. All right, so this week we are going to bring you some news. There's not a ton of news. We got a couple of big contract signings that have dynasty implications for your teams. And then we are going to play a game of genuine or erroneous. We are going to talk about some of the buzziest camp names that we've seen so far through the first week of training camp and whether they are the real deal, whether they are a diamond in the rough, if you will, or if they're a fugazi. Shout out to James and his Italian ass. So we are going to cover some news first. Let's get into it. Tua Tagovailoa signed a long-term extension. I'm going to give you the deets on this one, Tyler. It is a... I'm going to give it to you by the years. Here's a good one. So it's a 4-year deal. It's for a lot of money. That's all you need to know. So this year, he's only $9 million towards the cap. So it freed up some room for the Dolphins to maybe give Tyreek a pay raise if they feel they need to. In 2025, $59 million towards the cap. 2026, $63 million against the cap. And then after 2026, the Dolphins have a potential out. So this is really a 3-year deal for Tua. After the 2026 season, they can eat $19.8 million in dead cap in March of 2027, which isn't anything in today's NFL, to be honest. We've seen bigger dead cap hits out of Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan and you name it. So it's really a 3-year deal, which I think is smart on the Dolphins' part. I think Tua is a good QB. Is he going to be the quarterback that gets them to a Super Bowl and to win one? Maybe.
Possibly.
But this gives them an opportunity to say, hey, we got the guy that led the NFL in passing yards last year. Let's see what we have for 3 years. It's the window that Tyreek Hill is in, although he says he's not going to play past 30. So he has a 2-year window, but we'll see about that. He needs all the money he can get with all of his children. So I like this deal for both Tua and the Dolphins. I think it makes sense on both sides. And if you had Tua, he's a perfect QB2 in Superflex, right?
Yeah. The issue is, like you said, can he elevate to the next level? When he came out, we're like, hey, it's Drew Brees. I mean, when you lead the league in passing, you expect him to be like, okay, this guy is, kind of like what Herbert was, or Brock Purdy even. Like, if you want to compare him to that, you're kind of hoping for that. Brock Purdy was quarterback 6 and I think 4 point. And the thing is, like, Tua, the touchdowns aren't there yet. That's what you kind of want to see more of. You want to see more of the scrambling, but I think we're getting what we like. You get what you know right now, and that's where Tua is at
Mhm.
right now. So, is he worth? Like, who would you rather have, Purdy or Tua?
Ooh, that's a
Because I'd
great
say
question, actually.
those two are very close to me, and Purdy has proven he can be a great fantasy asset.
And he's going to get paid here at some point. Not this year, but probably in the next year or two.
Yep, and I still think Purdy's value is lower than Tua due to the pay, because I still feel like people out there think Purdy's not going to get paid. They'll be like, oh, they're going to be done with his contract and move on. It's like Purdy's legit.
Yeah, I don't think the Niners are going to try to do the draft again after the Trey Lance debacle.
Yeah,
Who coming out of training camp this year, he is the QB3 on Dallas, and from all reports, just does not look good at all
yeah.
whatsoever. So that's I still have him on a few dynasty rosters because I was like, well, if Dak doesn't re-sign with Dallas, like maybe it's
I think
looking
it's done.
he might be cuttable in your dynasty leagues, which sucks because in superflex leagues you paid a top 4 pick for Trey Lance, top 5.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I did it in one league. So, yeah, not so great. All right, let's move on to the next quarterback that signed for big money. That is the Packers' Jordan Love. They rewarded him with a very large deal. What was it 5 for 240? And you're looking at Love's cap hits by the year. So this year is 20 million, next year is 29, 2026 is 36, and then 2027 is 42. So this is really a 4-year deal. His cap hit in 2028, Tyler, any guesses?
60 something.
74.2 million.
Wow.
And the Packers they added 3 void years. In 2029, when it voids, a $35 million dead cap hit will be applied. So this is the numbers look big, but a lot of it is back end. So that's one thing to remember. I think that what they're doing is they're like, all right, well, you've been on the roster for a few years. You had a great year last year. Let's see if you're the real deal. Same thing with Tua. It's really a 3 or 4 year deal, and then they have an out and they can get out of it, which is smart.
Yeah, I mean, Love had 8 games at the end of the second half of the year where it's like unstoppable. The beginning of the year, I actually traded Love, and the beginning of the year it was like, is he the real deal? Do you feel like he could be the real deal? Like, beginning of the year, I had a lot of Jordan Love. I was panicking. I was like, he might not be it. Like, this is his chance. He looks bad. There's the Atlanta Falcons play where he ran into his line for a quarterback sneak and the line was off. And I think that was like that was the start of him being like, okay, I need to get my crap together because this is embarrassing. But then he just went nuclear. He went off. Even in the playoffs, he played very well. So I think when the stage was big, that's when you saw who he is. I love Jordan Love. I think he's a top 8 dynasty quarterback. I'd have him over a lot of people. Honestly, I'd probably have him close to Lamar Jackson. I know that's probably surprising to people, but that's just where I have him. Now, between Tua and Jordan Love, who are you believing in more long term?
I would say Jordan Love because I think he's the more talented player. I also think that the reason being too is that I trust Green Bay's front office where I don't trust Miami. And remember, like all those young weapons on the Packers are signed for the next 3-4 years for the most part. So that core of the team, Musgrave, Kraft, you're looking at that Marshawn Lloyd, who they drafted this year. They've got Christian Watson has at least 2, possibly 3 more years left on his deal. Same thing with Wicks, Dobbs, Reed. Like they're going to be in play for years to come. So they're not going to have to pay these guys at least for another 2 or 3 years. So there's a lot of comfort with Jordan Love. You don't have an aging Tyreek Hill. You don't have, they just paid Jalen Waddle. You have an aging Raheem Mostert. We don't know what Devin Achane. I know a lot of people love him. I'm not a huge fan. But to me, I trust the Green Bay Packers front office to run a team appropriately because they have a track record in doing so. So for me, it's Jordan Love. And like I said, I think he's a sneaky runner as well. Like if, he gets you a couple hundred rushing yards, that's awesome. Tua is not going to do that, especially with his concussion history. They don't want him running at all. So I would go with Jordan Love easily in that one.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. Yeah, I mean, he got paid, and I think the next contract coming up is Dak, Purdy, and we'll see what their market is. We'll see if Purdy can go out. Like, if Purdy hits the championship or Super Bowl again, he's the highest paid quarterback.
Probably. And, the thing with Dak is, he's been commenting like, oh, other great quarterbacks have played for other teams. I'm open to it. And he's using that for leverage. I get that. The Cowboys also need to pay CeeDee Lamb, which there's rumors that there's a deal possibly getting done here shortly for CeeDee Lamb, which would make him the second highest paid receiver, I think, after Jefferson, it looked like, from what I had seen. So we'll see how that goes. The Cowboys, then they got to extend Micah.
Micah should be the priority, personally.
They are in a very, I know, the cap is crap, really, but they can maneuver things. But it's going to be interesting to see how crazy pants Jerry Jones and his delusional ass tries to get it all done.
What's more real, Jerry Jones as a human being or the cap?
Oof. I wouldn't be surprised if Jerry Jones was an alien wearing a skin suit.
Yeah, like looking for sugar water.
Sugar water.
Sugar water.
I just watched that with the boys not too long ago. We watched Men in Black
so
1 and 2. They really liked it. Yeah. It was very, very good. Yeah, so that's it for big contract signings this week. There were a few camp injuries, but nothing on the offensive side of the ball. But I do have breaking news in my ear, Tyler. What was that? Oh, the Carolina Panthers. What have they done? It's a running back news. Oh, they just put Rashad Penny, who just said he was one of the best running backs in the league when healthy, on the reserved retired list. Huh.
So
fancy that.
Is kind of retired, maybe, partially.
Potentially. I will give Rashad Penny this. You spent a first-round pick on him when you drafted him, right? And if you held on to him, he did help you win your league if you made the playoffs the year that he went off.
Yeah.
And then he faded away into dust. Yeah, he did Alex Collins. Yeah. Alex Collins got hot down the stretch, helped you win a league, and then RIP. All right, let's keep it moving. Tyler, we want to play genuine or erroneous. So I'll have you start. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of go back and forth with some buzzy camp names. It could be at any position. Doesn't really matter. Who's buzzing? Is it real? Is it genuine? Or is it erroneous, meaning that it's just fake? Don't buy into it. So, or unless you want me to go first. I see you with your phone in your hand.
You go first, and I will pull up some news.
All right, I'm going to go first because I was at the first Patriots practice, and the one player on the offense that is getting the most buzz because he's making big plays, he's creating separation against the cornerback one, Christian Gonzalez. He's doing what we saw him do at UCF, and that's Javon Baker. He's getting open downfield. He's making contested catches. So far, his college tape is lining up to what he's doing on the NFL field in practices. It was the first padded practice yesterday for the Pats. He had a beautiful completion over the shoulder, Willie Mays style downfield from Jacoby Brissett, which is probably Jacoby's best throw that I've seen him take so far in training camp. So Javon Baker, to me, this depth chart, there's a lot going on here. You have the two rookies. You have Baker and Polk. You obviously have Demario Douglas, who a lot of people love. He's been dealing with a hand injury, so his reps have been a little bit short. Juju Smith-Schuster, who at camp, Juju is known to be like that energy guy, like TikTok dances. He looked pissed to be there. So interesting to see if he even makes the club. They still have Kendrick Bourne. They signed KJ Osborne, who, from all intents and purposes, has not looked good in practice these last few days. So maybe he's on the roster bubble. We don't know. But if anybody's making noise, it's Javon Baker. And Jalen Polk has looked good too. But I'm going to keep this specifically to Baker because he's a guy that I was investing in the third round in rookie drafts. And I was taking him above the Troy Franklins and Malachi Corleys a lot of the time because I like Javon Baker's skill set because on the Patriots roster, with all those guys that I just mentioned, he's the guy that does something different, than other guys. He can win those contested catches. Little Demario Douglas is not going to do that. Polk can do it, but that's not really his game. Baker, to me, is that alpha type of outside receiver. And that's why I targeted him because I think if he builds a nice rapport either with Jacoby Brissett or Drake May, towards the end of the season, if they start him, I think Baker can make some fantasy impact this year because as of right now, he's winning himself a starting role on the team. So I'm going to say genuine, and I'm going to ride that pony.
Nice callback. I'm gonna have to say. So should we talk about 2024 or the player? That's what I'm thinking of.
I'm going with the player,
The
and then if they
player, okay.
can, contribute in 2024, awesome. If not, at least if they can get more snaps, that's great.
Let's see. I'm gonna have to go. You know what? I'm gonna be conflicting with you, and I'm gonna say erroneous. I'm gonna say it's erroneous. And I think for the main part is I've heard some reports where Baker has had some drops. He's had
He
a
did have a
couple
drop the day
drops.
that I was there. Yeah.
Yep. And for me, I'm gonna go with Polk. Baker might get lost in the shuffle. Who knows? But I'm gonna go erroneous. I'm gonna go. This is erroneous.
We're gonna have to circle back on that one then.
All right. My player, Royce Freeman, Cowboys executive vice president Stephen Jones.
I'm excited now.
Royce Freeman could be the team's number 2 running back.
Could be, but won't.
Over Rico Dowdle, and then Zeke is running back 1. What do you think?
Erroneous. I think Rico Dowdle has more talent in his left leg than Royce Freeman has in his whole body at this point.
Have you ever been on the Rolls Royce ride? Have you ever? When he was a first round pick?
I've never. Yeah, he was like 107, 108 that year. Yikes.
Yeah.
I'm erroneous on Royce Freeman. I am not interested in that whatsoever.
All right. I'm going to have to say, as an RB2, I'm going to go genuine. I think it's genuine.
You are cold as a winter day today with your takes. They're bad.
I mean, he showed up a little bit with Houston. I think he's got some talent. Okay. I mean, he played with the Rams too and played well, but I mean, what running back doesn't with the Rams? All right, your turn. Give me some news.
All right, I'm going to keep it at running back, and I'm going to go with the kid that went to my home state, UNH, Dylan Lobb. So all the reports. So I'm going to give you some advice. Here is a fun activity to do. I do this a lot with IDP players because there's not as much news about IDP players as there is with offensive players. So when I have a tendency to look at my rosters and I look at my players and I'm like, I haven't really heard anything about this kid, or whatever. I'll type it into X, Twitter, and search their name and look for some industry insiders. This works really well for me for IDP, for like Owen Popo from the Cardinals, like guys that I'm like, is he going to make my roster? When I looked at Dylan Lobb, because I have him in a couple of leagues, the only positive thing out of Raiders camp that seems to be coming out of the offense is Dylan Lobb. There's, can he earn the RB2 role? Will he be the 3rd round back? He's returning kicks. Antonio Pierce has spoken glowingly about him. Like, he's just a mauler. He reminds me of, Austin Eckler was a UDFA, and he came out of school. I picked him up in a couple of dynasty leagues just because, and it worked out. Not to say that Dylan Lobb's going to do that, but the drumbeat for Dylan Lobb has been steady as it goes all through training camp so far. He's been the best player on offense as they've used him, because right now it's a quarterback battle between Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, and Gardner Minshew doesn't seem to be winning that right now. It seems to be Aiden O'Connell in position for the lead spot, which is very interesting. So, all that's in front of Dylan Lobb is Zamir White, Alexander Madison, dust, and Amir Abdullah, who is somehow still in the league. Former fantasy legend Amir Abdullah, by the way. Nothing like a preseason 50-yard touchdown run to get you into 3rd round in redrafts, I'll tell you.
Oh, man. That
memories.
The juke heard across the world.
Oh, my God. It's almost as good as the Terrell Pryor one-handed catch in the end zone that inflated his ADP with the Browns. That was when he was with the Redskins, I think. It was after the Browns year. Yeah, anywho. So Dylan Lobb to me is a guy, I took him in the last round of Scott Fishbowl because you get kick return points. And also in Scott Fishbowl, points for first downs and catches for running backs are awesome. So if Dylan Lobb becomes the RB2 or the 3rd down back there, like, I think he can work himself into a realistic role this year. And I'm going with Genuine.
I'm going to go genuine too. I really like Dylan Lobb. He fits perfect with this offense and what they want to do. And as much as Aiden O'Connell has kind of a gunslinger mentality, people think he checked down a lot last year. So for me, even Zamir White, who's not known as a pass catcher, had like 4 catches or 4 targets a game. So Dylan Lobb to me is definitely genuine. It's genuine. And if you don't have him, go out and see what his price is because he could be a very cheap RB
Would
four
you pay
maybe in your team.
would you pay a third for him right now? I
Yes.
know. All right, because the people that drafted him probably used a late fourth or fifth, right?
Yeah.
So to pay a third, I think is sneaky to do that now before the drum beat just gets louder and louder, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this kid's getting snaps every week.
Yeah. All right. I got one for you. Jameson Williams from the Lions camp
Ooh.
apparently is running a 4-1 out in the field, his teammates say, and is unstoppable. It's a different monster. A lot of Lions coaches have said he looks different out there. Dan Campbell, I don't know if this is a real quote, or if it's a quote made by me,
You
but
never know with Dan Campbell.
has said, who knows if it's me or Dan Campbell, but has said the kneecaps of defensive backs are worn off because of Jameson Williams just gnawing at him. So, Jameson Williams, are you believing the camp hype that is on year, what is it, 3?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If Jameson Williams, if this is the real deal, the Lions' offense is going to be. They're already really good, and there's a role there for a third pass catcher. I mean, well, fourth if you count Gibbs. But like Amon-Ra and Laporta, they need Jameson Williams to step up if they want to win a Super Bowl. Like, let's be honest, because he can fill that void. Amon-Ra is flexible; you can move him around. Same thing with Laporta, but they need like a field stretcher. I think with Williams, he was suspended last year. He was coming off injury in his rookie year. So this could be just the year 3, like he's finally got his shit together and like realizes that like, hey, this team went to the NFC Championship and almost won that game. Maybe I'm the missing link and maybe I can help this team get over the top and go to the Super Bowl. I wasn't a huge Jameson Williams guy. I know he was the first wide receiver drafted in his draft class. I wasn't a huge Williams guy. He's shown flashes when he has been on the field with separation and downfield ball skills. I'm gonna go, and I don't have Jameson Williams anywhere at all.
Yeah, me either.
So I'm gonna go with this. Feels right. I think it's genuine. We know he's a great prospect. We know the talent's there. It was all about the injuries, and is his head screwed on correctly? And it seems that is the case. He's healthy, and it seems like he is in a better place. So I'm going to go with genuine. Now, my question to you, Tyler, is if you're trying to go out and acquire Jameson Williams, the buzz is there. You're going to have to pay. What do you pay to get him on your roster?
I think to get him, it's going to be an early second. So I don't like the whole early second because who knows where people land. So you're going to have to get up a future second and possibly like a Dylan Lobb. So Dylan Lobb and a second, let's just say. And I'm not sure. Like, see, I'm very partial to it because we've seen speed guys fall and just fall apart. And the beginning of his career does not really bode well for him. Everything that has happened. And you don't see people just have, like, usually it's a 30-year breakout, but that rarely happens now. Usually you want to see production. I think he is fourth in the pecking order if he is fourth. They got Donovan Peoples-Jones behind him, which I don't think is much of a fear. I think they really want this pick to work out because they have drafted insanely well through this whole entire tenure. And I think he is the one guy that they missed. He's the one miss. So if he hits, this draft class they've had for the past 3-4 years is insane. So I think they want him to work. They will get him play. I think he'll be a full-time player these days, but he will be fourth on the pecking order. For me, you're paying for hopeful production. And as a second rounder, maybe a second and a third, I think I would do it. Just because, like you said, if it hits,
it'll hit big.
It's going to hit big. It's going to be 60. Like all you need is 60 catches from him because it's going to be 1,200 yards.
Yeah,
it's going to be like 1,200 yards and probably like 8+ touchdowns. So, I mean, you're paying wide receiver for production for him, and you could get wide receiver 2 to 3 production. So yeah, it's a pretty good value right now.
Yeah, and I would say like this news, his ADP. I just did an underdog Scott Fishbowl satellite draft, and I was shocked to see how high Jameson Williams was in the rankings. I was like, oh wow.
Oh yeah, best ball, he is a beast. Like if you have him in best ball, nice. Like that is perfect. If you have a dynasty best ball team, I would pay a late first for him because he's the perfect best ball player.
And shout out to Best Balls. Check out manscaped.com. Code DHH, save 20% off, and you'll have the best balls.
You'll have the best balls.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I want to talk Pittsburgh pass catchers because there's been a lot of buzz out of Pittsburgh for the group of Pat Freiermouth.
Van Jefferson.
Roman Wilson has been turning heads apparently these last few practices, as well as Calvin Austin, who is a guy that's probably on the very end of your rosters if you have larger rosters. He's a guy that I'd be willing to pick up as well if I had the space. And we all know George Pickens, like he should have a good year. So the question is really the quarterback play. Russell Wilson has been out of practice with a calf strain. Justin Fields has been up and down, as he typically is, but he's made some really nice throws in practice. I want to focus on Freiermuth, Vermouth, and Wilson and Calvin Austin, because I think there's an opportunity. You know, we all know Arthur Smith is there, so that's this big scary, right? You're like, oh, he's just going to run the ball. He's just going to run the ball. Pat Freiermuth can look great in camp, but come time the season comes, we saw what he did to Kyle Pitts, yada yada yada. So I think this is a very interesting offense because you have some skill players really popping, but then you're like, oh, they look great, but Arthur Smith. So let's start with Pat Freiermuth. Are you genuine or erroneous that this is going to be the return of a potential tight end 1 this year?
I would say genuine for Freiermuth. I think that is they really want him to be a part of the offense, and every time he is healthy, it seems like he is the dude throughout his career. It's been injuries, like you said, concussions
specifically, yeah.
And if he has any other injuries like that this year, I think we should start thinking about this guy's career might be in jeopardy. And then you might look at Dwayne Washington, who has shown, hey, he could be a pass catcher if need
Darnell.
Be. Yeah, Darnell Washington.
Dwayne Washington, wasn't he a running back for the Lions? And now he's in the Saints.
Everybody.
Yeah. Darnell.
So
right.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think it's genuine.
Okay, now let's talk about Roman Wilson, who is one of my favorite picks, right in that area of Javon Baker. He would usually go a little bit before Baker, and I would lean Wilson over Baker because I think Wilson has more of a year 1 opportunity. He should be a starting wide receiver in this offense, and he's got the juice. But he can run clean routes. They can move him around. So what do you think about Roman Wilson?
I mean, I really like Roman Wilson. I think he's a great player. The issue is Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith only had room for like one pass catcher to get at least 800 yards. That is where that is Arthur Smith. And like I said, he could be somebody. Arthur Smith could be somebody who changes his ways just to kind of shove it up people's arse. So
he does get ornery when he's confronted with any of this stuff. He gets angry. So
for me, I think we're looking at a rough first half probably for Roman Wilson. We're going to see Van Jefferson get more play than him. And for me, I think I've learned over the years I need to pump the brakes on expectations for like later on rookies. I mean, we saw Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool didn't start off hot. It wasn't until week 5 or 6 as a rookie with Pittsburgh.
Then he caught fire.
Then he blew up. It was like 2-3 touchdowns. Here we go, Chase Claypool. Mapletron. So, yeah, I would say Roman Wilson. I think he's going to be a buy early on, and then as the season progresses, we're going to see more and more of him integrated in the offense. But I really do like him, and he is another player that if I have to give up my second next year, because he was probably a second or early 3rd round pick, I think if I have to give up my second for 2025, I would probably pull the trigger.
Okay. I don't think I would, because I think in a second round next year, I kind of want to see what's
the running backs will be there.
Yeah. And then lastly, Calvin Austin. He did flash a little bit during the season last year. He had a couple big splash plays. I liked him coming out of college too. He was more of a later round pick. But anytime the Steelers draft a wide receiver, I always take notice because they have a history of doing a really good job at that particular position outside of like Limas Swede, if you remember who he is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they missed on that one. Big kid out of Texas. So Calvin Austin, to me, probably out of all the three of these guys, I will say Freiermuth and Wilson, I'm genuine on. I'm erroneous on Austin. And really, it's because, in essence, he'll be the fourth pass catcher, maybe. So do I think he's rosterable in a deeper dynasty league? Yes.
In kick return leagues, he's going to be very helpful.
Yes.
It's like,
yeah.
So, also, I was listening to the Locked On podcast yesterday, and Marcus Mosher has he has a rule I want to integrate if this kicking stands, and it's I want to add 1 point per 25 yards of kickoff and punt return yards.
Yeah.
Like
that's one thing. We'll see what it looks like, and then after the season, you bring it up, kind of thing.
Because if it is bigger than we think, it's going to involve these guys like Calvin Austin more and give them more credibility, which will be very nice.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm going to go with Fugazi or Erroneous on Austin. Tyler, you're up next, sir.
All right, let's move to Minnesota, and the third receiver is open after KJ Osborne is.
Well, maybe the second receiver is open because it looks like Addison might get suspended.
Yes, that is a possibility, or it could be one of those things where it is pushed a little bit. Jalen Naylor has come out of the woodworks and has been outstanding catching touchdown passes.
Is that a carpentry joke that Naylor comes out of the woodworks?
Yes.
Nice. Just wanted to point that out for everyone out there.
Yeah, Naylor is out of Michigan State. If you don't know, he was a 5th or 6th round pick. He was definitely
he was a late pick,
a day 3. But his first year, he had some injuries, and then second year he had a little bit of injury. So he's staying healthy throughout camp. He's looking great, and he is leading that wide receiver 3 job, which we saw KJ Osborne have weeks here and there of 2 touchdowns with Kirk Cousins. So it is an opportunity that could be good, especially with Hawkinson on the pup right now, and might be, might miss the beginning of the year. So Jalen Naylor, do you think this is genuine or erroneous?
I still have Jalen Naylor on some rosters, believe it or not. I liked Naylor coming out, and I've held on to him because I do like him. Minnesota did make a point to get him the ball a little bit last year, so I think they like him. Again, much like Calvin Austin, is he a guy that you keep on your roster if the roster's deep? Yes. Is he going to make a fantasy impact this year? I mean, maybe if Addison does get suspended for the rumored 3 games, possibly. I just think it's going to be tough with the quarterback situation there and Jefferson being such a target hog. I'm going to lean erroneous.
Okay. And let's move on to another Vikings quick. JJ McCarthy has looked outstanding. Apparently,
erroneous,
and is throwing darts. My favorite thing is I saw a beat reporter say, "Okay, JJ McCarthy does look good, but then there's these," and he threw a pick, and it was a pick 6. But
he's a rookie.
Apparently, the velocity's there. He's making the mistakes, which we stated. Like, hey, if a player's not making mistakes, like I was telling Doug, I don't know if this was off or not, but I was telling you about Michael Lombardi on his podcast saying Trey Lance is just dumping it off. He's being safe. He's not trying to push it downfield, and he's not making these mistakes in practice. He's just trying to kind of secure a job.
He's not letting it rip, if you will.
Yes. Yeah. And now the fact that he's with Dallas, he is trying that and making mistakes, and just it's been ugly for Trey Lance. That is not great, but JJ McCarthy doing his rookie year, learning, and then also having very nice plays. That is a good sign that, hey, he's progressing well. But I mean, I think Sam Darnold is definitely the starter, because rumor has it Sam Darnold is zipping it down the field to Jefferson and connecting very well. So little key here, if you have JJ McCarthy, go out and get Darnold for like a 3rd.
Yeah, the reports have been that Darnold does look good. All right, I'm going to give you a real good one here because there's been buzz. We all were kind of skeptical when the Bills drafted Keon Coleman. And I'm not a huge Keon Coleman guy. I'm a Florida State fan. I see the things that he does well. I just didn't know if he would be able to kind of compete in the NFL and be successful. But Keon Coleman, for multiple days in a row now, has made some spectacular catches for the Bills and supposedly is building a really nice rapport with Josh Allen. And the
Their
important thing about that,
personalities are exactly the same. They're
yeah.
little
So
children.
the important thing about that is when you look at the Bills roster of pass catchers, again, much like Javon Baker, like Keon Coleman is the only guy on that roster that can do the things that he can do.
Yeah.
It's Khalil Shakir, it's Curtis Samuel, who's also been getting a ton of buzz and drumbeat in Joe Brady's offense. I'm going to say genuine on Curtis Samuel, by the way. But you got the two tight ends with Kincaid and Knox, and there's been reports that like, hey, pump the brakes on Kincaid because Knox has been making some plays too. And I remember, I've been a Dawson Knox stan since like day one. In his days at Ole Miss, he just didn't see the ball because they had AJ Brown and DK Metcalf and Elijah Moore, but his athleticism was off the charts. So it's going to be interesting with Keon Coleman. I'm starting to before the season, I would have been erroneous. I'm starting to be somewhere in the middle. I can't say genuine or erroneous. I'm gonna be France in this one, and I'm gonna sit on the fence. I will not make any other jokes.
How dare you? The Olympics are there, Doug.
So for me, Keon Coleman is generating some buzz, and we've seen the big receiver on the Bills and what that looks like. I hope his ceiling isn't Gabe Davis. I hope it's better than that. The vacated targets from Diggs are there. Does he have an opportunity to make some noise? Yes, I think he does. And he may end up proving to be a nice value in rookie drafts. He was in the early second a lot of the time, sometimes as early as the first around the turn. But I saw him go as low as like 204, 205 because some people just didn't like Keon Coleman. But he could end up returning a lot of value. So, Tyler, I know you like Keon Coleman, and you've invested in him in a couple of spots. So, are you genuine or are you erroneous?
I'm genuine, and I get the aspect of like separation and all that stuff. But Keon Coleman has like pterodactyl wingspan, and his hands are strong, but yet the way he catches it, it's like easy. Soft. It's natural. It's soft. His hands are probably one of the best hands in this draft class, next to like Marv and Neighbors, who also is just blowing up camp. Well, he's my next guy, Neighbors. Okay. So I think it's genuine. I saw the Samuel stuff. I think Samuel will be the chess piece that they move around. There's been some news about Khalil Shakir and Joe Brady being like, hey, we don't need you to be any more than what you are now. Like, that's never a good thing because Shakir might be trying to push himself further than what, more than he can go. So Joe Brady being like, hey, we don't need you to do anymore. It's like,
I think part of that, though, is I think that Josh Allen's favorite receiver is going to be who's ever open. The old Tom Brady. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter. They don't need an alpha. They just need, like, who. And Shakir can get open. And he has rapport with Allen. So I'm not worried about Shakir as much.
Yeah, I Coleman could be the guy that we saw with, like, Jordan Addison last year, where it's like 900 yards, but double-digit touchdowns. Because Keon Coleman in the red zone is going to be a monster and a problem. And I agree with the Kincaid stuff. Like, Kincaid is good, but are we sure he's getting that Travis Kelce line share workload where he's the main target?
Dawson Knox there.
Yeah, that's the thing is, and Kansas City's running into that with Jared Wiley. Like, Jared Wiley is blowing up Kansas City camp. And are we going to see Jared Wiley more? Or Noah Gray is fully healthy and he's getting buzz. Like, are we going to see Kelce finally have another weapon behind him at his positional spot that's going to disrupt him? That could be the issue. But if Dawson Knox was with Kansas City, we would see him like an Anthony Fasano style back when Fasano was in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the Bills. I'm gonna go genuine on Keon Coleman going back. So okay. Like I said, I wasn't a big fan of the separation, but man, like when he was throwing the ball, if it was anywhere near him, the way he can manipulate his body and twist and just it's natural. And that's what I really like seeing. He is like a DeAndre Hopkins style type player to me, or Devontae Adams. If he can start fine tuning that route running, he could be elite.
Gotcha. All right, you said you want to move on to Malik Neighbors, yeah?
Yes, Malik Neighbors is destroying Giants camp. He is catching everything. I know we've seen
Army
Hard Knocks.
shocked.
My question is, Neighbors and Marv. There's rumors Neighbors is going to get 100 plus targets easily. That's what the OC has said. Why are we not going to get this guy 100 plus targets? Apparently, Marv on the other side is the veteran in the locker room. There are veterans behind my actual veterans saying they are happy to have him in the locker room because they can learn a lot from him. That's Marvin Harrison. That's who we're talking about.
I mean, this is the benefit that you have when you're the son of a Hall of Famer and you've been around NFL teams your entire life.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
My question is, genuine or erroneous? My comment, Neighbors has a better fantasy season and becomes a bigger like value in the trade market over Marv after this season.
So during the whole process of the draft, I always said that I would take Harrison over Neighbors, but I recognize that Neighbors might have the higher ceiling because of his electricity and the way that his catch and run. Like Marv can run, but Neighbors is different. He's electric. Marv is like Marv reminds me, like, if I were to compare them, like, I don't know, this is just making it up. So Marv is like Devontae Adams. Like, he's not going to catch a slant and run 80 yards typically. Neighbors can do that. Where Neighbors has more of like if you move him around, I don't want to say Tyreek Hill, but like that's the first thing. Like, he just has that
Odell
different
Beckham
gear.
In his prime. Odell Beckham in his prime.
Sure. He just has that different gear that Marv doesn't have, and that's okay. They're very different players. And, when the Giants said that they had Neighbors over Marv in their draft board, that didn't surprise me. Like, it really depends on the type of player that you want in your offense. Neighbors, because, I mean, the only other pass catchers on that team, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, those guys are whatever. Like, Neighbors is going to get a ton of targets, as is Marv. So I'm going to say genuine on the fact that Neighbors could have a better rookie year than Marv. And if you look at it in redraft, so going through Scott Fishbowl and doing some of these underdog drafts, Marvin Harrison's a second-round pick. You can get Neighbors in the 5th. I'm going to take Neighbors in the 5th over Harrison in the 2nd all day long because I realize that Neighbors has that higher ceiling. So, yeah, I'm going to say genuine on that for sure.
Okay. And, I mean, we could just be looking at a Mike Evans, Odell Beckham back in 2015 after they both had monster years. We could be looking at a situation where it's like...
And they're both probably going to be great.
Yeah. Who's going to be the first? Like, Beckham would have been outstanding if he could have stayed healthy throughout his career. It's just he was derailed by injury after injury after injury.
Yep.
So, yeah, we could be looking at the same situation. Or AJ Green and Julio, where it's like, hey, pick one. Who gives a damn?
It doesn't matter.
So good.
It doesn't matter. They're both
honestly,
good.
Rome could be the Devontae Adams of that group because wasn't Devontae in 2014 as well?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so like Rome could be that guy where it's like, hey, we could all be fighting over Mike Evans and Odell, but the true dark horse is Rome.
Yeah. The next player I want to bring up, because this is a guy that's on your deep rosters who's been getting some buzz, could be the starting slot receiver, should be the starting slot receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals, and it's Andre Yaishevash.
Yeah,
I love this kid.
Any chance you get to bring him up?
Love this kid. 6'3", an athletic freak. For me, he was the T. Higgins replacement on the outside once T goes somewhere else. And he filled in for T when he was hurt. He had a 2-touchdown game. He looked really good. He's a big red zone threat. If they put him in the slot, that is a huge mismatch because most of your nickel corners are 5'8", 5'9", maybe a little bit taller. You're going to have this hyper freak 6'3" burning across the field in the slot, taking the Tyler Boyd role. Yes, please. I am all about that. I know Jermaine Burton's on the roster. Maybe he wins the slot spot too. But Aishavas has been getting the buzz out of camp. I'm all in. I love it because I have him in a ton of rosters. I knew he was raw coming out of school, but the athleticism, the speed, I saw what he could do on the field, and now you give him a starting role in one of what should be one of the best offenses in the NFL with a healthy Joe Burrow. I'm excited. Genuine.
I'm gonna go Erroneous. I'm sorry, I gotta disagree. As much as I know you like him, I'm gonna go Erroneous because I really like Jermaine Burton, and I think Burton is going to be the real deal. Burton also in camp has shown to be like connected at the hip with Burrow. He has been just all about training, and the biggest thing with Burton was his mental. Like, hey, is this guy all about football? And everything I've seen is yes.
That's going to be an interesting. Whoever wins that role is going to be a fantasy goldmine.
Yeah, 100%.
And then if T. Higgins goes down or Chase goes down, like forget about it. Like those guys are going to eat.
I've got one last one. And this is kind of music to my ears because I was not about this guy and his value was so high due to draft capital. But Bo Nix has looked terrible. Absolutely trash. He's looked very bad for many days this camp. He's had some good throws, but apparently his arm strength isn't showing up, and he has not connected well with receivers. Do you think this is genuine or erroneous, Doug?
Oh man, if it is genuine and he's bad, Sean Payton is going to be on the first train out of Denver at the middle of the year or the end of the year. It would be
Doug, the plan worked. The plan worked. He didn't want JJ McCarthy. He wanted Bo Nix.
This could be catastrophic for Denver if this doesn't work. We all know this.
Yeah.
God, genuine or erroneous? I'm going to go with Erroneous. It's just training camp. He's a rookie. I think he'll be okay.
Is he though? He's played like 1,000 games.
he is the NCAA leader in games played. That is for sure. But I am going to say Erroneous because I think, who's he going to beat out? Jarrett Stidham and what's the third quarterback? Yeah. Oh, Zach Wilson, who they might cut this week, from what I've heard. So
this quarterback situation looks ugly.
It's not great, Bob.
They should have just went with Field and said, screw it. Like, that's what they should have done.
You got that thin air up there. You could have been airing it out to Cortland Sutton. Yeah. It would have been. It wouldn't have been terrible.
I just think this is great because I liked Bo Nix and I missed out on a lot of opportunities. Like I was like, okay, he's got a starting spot. He's a quarterback in Superflex. We all know about these guys. And I was like, damn, I keep missing out. And I would always go for Penix if I missed him, or if I missed him. Like I went Keon Coleman over him in UDPL, and I was kind of like, oh, is this a great decision? So hearing this news kind of reinforms me that my tape watching is still there. And I still got a little bit of it because I was not a fan of Bo Nix. Also with Denver, when John Elway is like, yeah, my biggest mistakes as a GM was not drafting Josh Allen. They took Bradley Chubb over him. Yeah. You had a quarterback that looked just like you, John.
Imagine Josh Allen in Denver.
Yeah. They had a quarterback that looked just like you in every aspect. Like,
except Josh Allen doesn't look like a horse, but I get it.
Well, that transition happened when he
put the helmet on.
Was like, well, when he's like, hey, you know what? I want to be the best Bronco, an actual Bronco, not the truck, the horse. So he had plastic surgery done. Yeah. So I think that's funny hearing that. Yeah, our biggest mistake was not drafting Josh Allen. Well, yeah, no shit. A lot of teams. Yeah. I'd say the Jets.
I think 31 teams would be like, our biggest regret in the 2000 draft was not drafting Tom Brady.
Yeah. We missed out on that one.
Well, 199 picks. Oh, my God.
But, yeah, Bo Nix not being good is kind of music to my ears. Sorry, David.
I have him in a couple spots. I hope he does okay. I've got one last name as well, and this is a guy that, as of right now, I think he might have just been added into MFL, like today.
Wow.
So this is hot. If you have roster space or a taxi squad space. There's this kid getting some hype in New Orleans. Now, we all know New Orleans has a pretty wide open depth chart after Chris Olave, does it not? A.T. Perry has been running with the third team. I don't like to hear that.
Whoa.
Rashid Shaheed is, I don't want to call him a one-trick pony, but he's not a guy that's going to generate a lot of targets, I don't think, as the second pass catcher. But there is a man by the name of Mason Tipton who is doing very, very nice things for the New Orleans Saints on their depth chart. So go into MFL. I don't know if he's on Sleeper at all, and add Mason Tipton, because you know what? You just never know.
You do. You don't. Like Colston was the same way. If you go back in time, no, he wasn't in MFL. You couldn't add him. He was a tight end. And you're like, Marcus Colston, like, what the hell? And all of a sudden, boom. If you had him.
All of a sudden, he's a wide receiver 2 in fantasy for years.
I mean, Puka was drafted, but Puka was kind of like, okay, whatever. Some added to him.
And then we heard in camp, this kid's making plays. This kid looks good. And what did he do? Oh, I don't know. Just like set the rookie receiving records all over the place. Not to say that Mason Tipton's going to do that. But again, you just never know. And it's worth taking a flyer. Drop a guy like a Hunter Renfrow that's not even on a freaking team and go pick up Mason Tipton. I do have one other one who's another steady drumbeat. And it's Puka Nakua's teammate. It's Jordan Whittington. Out of Texas. Now, this kid buried on the depth chart between behind Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. He's probably picked up in all your deeper leagues, but he's been making some buzz. You know, the Rams camp, Jordan was at Lupe, has said some really positive things about him. Like, he is flashing, and he's pushing Tutu Atwell for the wide receiver 4 job behind, obviously, behind Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah.
But just imagine if any of those guys go down with an injury, like Whittington could be the wide receiver 3 in a very good offense. And for the price of free, I'm all about that life. So maybe he becomes something. Maybe it's just buzz that never pays off. But again, if he's available in your league, it never hurts to add skeptical flyers in your league, because if they hit, they were free. And then if you're like, well, I don't even really like the player, but he hit, then flip him for whatever pick you can get, or just ride the wave. And if you drafted Puka Nacua in the 4th and 5th round, ride the wave if you want. He's a great player. So that's the kind of dynasty moves that you need to make and be ahead of the curve versus behind it. So Mason Tipton, Jordan Whittington, I would go out, check your waiver wires for those guys right now and add them as priorities if you can.
Also, look for this coming week or this week. They're actually in pads now. So this is when practices actually get tough, and you're going to see actual news come out. So last week was like non-padded practice or run around in shorts. This is when things get serious. So this is when we
starts to get more competitive.
Yep. And also we got the Hall of Fame game coming in 2 days. So that's also like, as much as the preseason can get a little long and just like we're all excited for it, but we all know what happens. That game happens, and after the first quarter, you're like, I don't know who any of these people are. Well, pay attention.
Exactly.
A lot of the camp news you heard, look out for these players. And if they're playing with the first team, take notice to it, because a lot of the starters won't play. But just enjoy it. We got football.
Yes, it is upon us, and I am excited. That is going to wrap us up for our Genuine or Erroneous segment for this week. Thank you to Tyler for joining me on. He's an hour behind me, so it's even earlier for him. So I know my kid only came down one time the whole podcast, and I gave him the no, not today. And he went upstairs. So that was good. So we remain unscathed on the children interrupting the podcast. So we're going to take that as a big dad dub over here in Minnesota and Rhode Island. Absolutely. So for Tyler, for me, we're going to see you next week on the Dynasty Happy Hour.